Hello, everybody. I am here today to talk to you about to start a new series. This new series is going to be a very, very big challenge, a mind-blowing, mind-challenging, mind-inquiring series. This series is about the black people. I would like to say that this is a topic that I'd never fancied talking about personally. I don't like to discuss and talk and argue about the fact that are we inferior or we are not inferior or we are superior or things like that. I'm more of a person that just believes that we are all humans. And since we are all human, and we're just brothers and sisters. We are one in Christ, and since we are in God, and we just have to love one another. Just love people, and that's all that matters. That's the way I used to look at the world until I, started knowing more about people, about how people think. So there is this preacher, a pastor in America, that's a black American pastor that actually bashes. The only thing he does in his pulpit is bashing black people and talking down black people and saying all kinds of negative things about black people. This is one of the reasons why I decided to research into the history of the black race and to know more about who we are and why we are where we are today. There is also another pastor from Nigeria that wrote a book that says what is wrong with a black man. So people assume that things are wrong, something is wrong with black people. This is another reason why I had to write this book, and I had to address this topic to write my own book. But the perspective I was coming from is not that things are wrong with Africans, but from the perspective of the fact that no, nothing is wrong with Africans. And the fact that we are where we are right now doesn't mean that we've always been like this. However, even after writing the book, How Africans Brought Civilization to Europe, I discovered that there is a need to do a video series teaching and series like this after one of my History Makers training, at which I just mentioned a little bit about the black man being cursed. And I was alarmed to hear that even Bible schools in Africa are teaching their adherents that black people are cursed. But the point that I was making, that HMT, is that no, we are not cursed. But it's one thing for you to to know or to hear the white people say, or Europeans say, or other people say that black people are cursed, but for black people themselves to buy into that narrative and into that, deception is mind-blowing to me. That is why I now, understood the necessity of doing a whole series on African black people. So this series is going to be about black people. And another reason why I didn't like to talk about black people too much is because I'm pastoring white people, 99% white people in my congregation. So I didn't see the need for it. But later on, I wrote the book because I understood that I needed to change the mindset of the white people as well. So the series this time we are going through is, are black African people cursed? Are black African people cursed? Are we cursed? Are black African people cursed? Well, we are going to spend like a month trying to figure out the answers to these questions. Here we go. I'm going to start with the book that I wrote on that topic, How Africans Brought Civilization to Europe. If you don't know the book, please go get it. Go look for it on the internet. Funny enough, the only one person who has written a report after reading that book is a white man on Amazon. You know, on Amazon you are asked to send your review of the book. So this guy read the book and got mad that how can Africans bring civilization to Europe and put 0 or 2 the mark that you have to grade the book between 1 to 10 to 5. So he put 0 or 1 or 2, something like that there. And it's the only one comment, the only one review that is in the book. So if you have read this book and you have been encouraged by it, please, I want you to go ahead and write your review on Amazon so that at least we will increase the rating of the book. Because black people, it's like we don't read the books. But we need to read this one and put the rating on high so that more other black people could go get the book. So, unfortunately, maybe black people have read the book, I don't know, but they are not writing their comments, and I'm not aware of if they have read the book or not. So this is if you have not seen the book, there is the book, there is the way it looks. How Africans brought civilization to Europe. This is the book here. Yeah, there is the book here. So you can find it on Amazon or in other places. So are black African people caused? How Africans brought civilization to Europe. Why I wrote this book. So why did I write this book? That is what we are going to be talking about today. Why I wrote the book. Why I wrote this book. Okay, here we go. Please go invite all the black people that you know. Go invite everybody that you know about this subject. And I hope that this will really open the eyes of both black and other nationalities to who black people really are. And that the fact that Africa is the most backward continent right now doesn't really mean that black people are inferior anyway at all. So this teaching is an antidote and a vaccine for racism. And the same reason for the book. I wrote this in the book as well. So it's supposed to act as the antidote and vaccine for racism. That we have to inject this vaccine into the veins of the global community and peoples of every continent and every country. So the whole idea is that people's eyes will be open, starting from the black people, that they will know that everything is okay with them and that they are not inferior to any other race and that they are not caused by God. And we're going to look into that also because there is the narrative about the cause of harm or the cause of black people. So we are going to be talking about that very soon as well, maybe tomorrow or the day after. We're going to do that very soon to let you know that no, black people are not caused at all. And even harm was not caused. So a lot of misconceptions and deceptions and lies have permeated through the ages, making black people to look very ugly and very bad. But we know that is not, we are going to prove it through history. And these teachings I'm going to be doing is going to be based on history. And after every teaching, I'm going to be presenting a video that confirms the thesis and the hypothesis that I'm going to be presenting. So everything is going to be based on history. And if you read my book, How Africans Brought Civilization, you will see that everything is document-based. It's based on its research. And a lot of references are in the book. So this teaching is an example or a case study which is going to be a precedent. So what is a precedent? The precedence is the name of a decision of the highest judicial body in a particular country or in a particular matter, which is subsequently mandatory for the courts in the resolution of similar cases. So let's say, for example, there is a case of a man, sleeping with the maid, for example. And that kind of case had never been brought to a law court before. And no judicial decision had ever been made on similar cases. So when the highest Supreme Court of the land or the highest court of the land takes a decision and writes it down, that becomes what we call a precedence for other courts and other judicial bodies to follow. So this is what we are trying to do. With this book that I wrote and with these teachings that I'm doing, we want to lay a precedence. We want to lay a new beginning for the narratives of the African and black people all over the world. We want to start a new story, a new narrative, a new history, which is based on truth of who the black people really are. Because the stories and the narratives about black people, even in history books, is mainly based on the people who oppressed us. And whenever you allow your oppressors to write your own book, your book for you, you are in trouble. You see, there is a proverb, an African proverb, that says that until the lions can write their own histories, until the lions can write their own history, all other history will only be glorifying the hunter. If it is the hunter that is writing the history, is only all history about hunting and about lions is only going to be glorifying the hunter, because the hunter is going to be telling you how heroic he is until the lions and the animal world can write their own history about how they defeated the hunter sometimes as well. You will never really see the story and the history and the truth about the hunter, about the lions. So so that's the same similar story about the Africans. Until we begin to write our own history, your enemy will never write the best history about you to glorify you. People who have oppressed you, people who have colonized us, people who have dominated us, people who have sold us as material products, people who have made us into money-making products, enterprise. They would never write to justify you. They would rather justify themselves. They would rather write in such a way as to justify why they have to sell you like products. And the reason why they have to do that is because, so that they are not judged and condemned. They have to say, oh, these people are inferior, these people are not humans, so that's why we have to trade them and sell them and treat them like that, because they are not really like us. So that is upon what premise the history of the black people have been written. It has been written from the perspective of they are not really humans anyway, so they're just like animals. We sell animals, so we can sell them too. We colonize and enslave animals, so we can enslave them as well. That's why until the black people begin to write their own history, tell their own histories, and research into the documents that really tell the story of who they really are, never expect that the people, your oppressors, will do that for you. And the history world that we are all reading, especially right now in the Western world, is mainly from the perspective of the oppressors. So this teaching is an example, a case in precedence. That is the name of the decision made in the highest judicial body in a particular case, which is subsequently mandatory for the court in the resolution of similar cases. So this is what I believe this teaching is doing. It's going to lay a precedence for the narratives, for the new narratives about black people all over the world. Therefore, this teaching of investigation and research is relevant for all countries and regions without exception, because black people have played a role in the life and history of every other race in the world. And black people are actually the root of all other races. And there is a little of black history in every race and in every continent. So everybody needs this teaching as well. Because when black people discover the truth about themselves, all other nations also discover the truth about themselves. So this teaching will serve as an illustrative example in restoring the true role of various groups of people classified by ethnic grounds and in establishing a harmony or harmonic existence, mutual respect of different nationalities living on the same territory or on the same planet. Almost all achievements of black people cited in this book, in this teaching and my book, are largely unknown to most people in our world today. The very fact that you are listening to this teaching is already an historical feat. It's already history on its own. Therefore, imagine yourself among people, the jurors and the juries in the court, at a court session where you will have to make a crucial decision for history. So listen attentively, because you have to help write this new narrative to the history the history book of the world. Not every aspect of black people or black history will be covered, definitely. I personally would have liked to put a lot there from my country or from my tribe, Nigeria, but I have to look beyond myself. I have to look beyond my tribe and my culture and my country. I have to be fair to history, and I have to base everything on history, not just on storytellings and on oral history that is passed down, but it has to be documented. So we are basing all our teachings this week on documents. So I repeat again, not every aspect of the contribution of Africans made to history and to creation and development of even European civilization is in this book, but we will give the general picture. A number of the basic elements of civilization, the faithful events behind which the black people were standing, which are described, will be sufficient, in this book, will be sufficient as a respected reader. You will be able to make up your own opinion about black people after reading this book and after reading this, after hearing this teaching. We will see the truth about Africans in regards to this following. One, will you believe it that Africans are actually the prelude of civilization? Africans are the origin of civilization. Africans are the root of civilization. All humanity started with Africans. And this is scientifically proven. And if you get that book, you will see all the references to that Africans are actually the cradle of humanity. Number two, Africans, either you like it or not, you believe it or you don't believe it, go search the history, go look at the history book, that Africans created the greatest civilizations of the ancient world. Now, not of this world, but the ancient world, right. Africans created the greatest civilizations. Three, Africans created key civilizations almost on every continent of the world. Africans created the key civilizations in every continent of the earth. Next one. Africans were the first to discover America. Can you believe that? And we are going to, don't believe my story, we are going to show you the documents and even the video to confirm to you that Africans were the first people to live in America. And they developed the American civilization as well. The ancient American civilization, that is. Africans also created and influenced in a determinative way the global religions. You know, there are these world religions. Well, Africans played very decisive role in these world religions. Next point. Africans created the European civilization. So a lot of the things that, not the whole of it, but a lot of the European civilization that we are enjoying today was also created, and the foundation of it was laid by Africans. And can you believe this? That Africans actually ruled over Roman Empire. There were African emperors. Can you believe that? You were never told that in the history book, right? That there were African emperors? Okay, you wait. Africans also created Russian literature. Actually, the greatest Russian writer has an African blood in him. Africans also helped the Russians to create their national literature in not just Russia, but all of Europe. All of Europe. Even the Russian language that is spoken today, the Russians have to credit an African person for it. Because it's an African person that laid the foundation for the new Russian language that is spoken today. Next point. Africans brought enlightenment and spirituality to Europe. Next point. Africans created writing, letters. Next point. Africans invented metallurgy, the basis of industrialization. Next point. Africans created science, at least some aspect of science. Next point. Africans created astronomy and developed it to an impressive degree. Next point. Africans created high-tech construction and general construction as we know it today. Next point. Africans determined the scientific and theological and technological progress of the world and many other things. So this will be revolutionary and incredibly interesting experience and journey for all of you to go through. And if you don't have the book, go get that book, How Africans Brought Civilization to Europe. Next point, did Africans bring civilization to Europe? Yes, they did. You will not have a slightest doubt of that fact after you listen to this to the whole series of these teachings and after you read the book. And not only to Europe, in literary sense of the word, Africa brought civilization to almost all corners of the planet Earth. No matter how paradoxical it may sound for some people, that is the fact. Why is the topic of this teaching focused specifically on the contribution of Africans to European civilization? Well, because this is my most famous book in that subject, and that is the backbone of this my teaching as well. That's the research that I did. Firstly, at the moment, the European civilization is considered a key, exemplary, and unmatched one. But then nobody credits you Africans when they talk about the European civilization that we are all enjoying today. Nobody almost refers to Africans at the end of the day and their contribution to this civilization. Therefore, it is very important to highlight the unique role of Africans in the formation of this civilization of Europeans. Secondly, it is the Europeans, for the most part, who stand behind the need to write a book about it. Now, why is it that I say that the Europeans were the reason why I wrote the book? Because I lived in Europe, and in this part of Europe that is very racist and very nationalistic, in Russia and Ukraine. And they look down at us. In fact, some people used to tell me at the earlier years here that, is it true that they cut off your tail when you got to Moscow? Is it true that you were living on trees in Europe, in Africa? Is it true that you didn't bath, you didn't take your bath, and you never bathe, that's why you are black? And some kids, even up to now, will come to you and try to rub off the dirt from your skin. So that informs the reason why. In fact, when as a successful African myself here, some of their elite will come, even the government will come on, and the people in the parliament will come on and say it's a disgrace that a black man is leading all these white people. Because white people are supposed to be leading blacks, but blacks are never supposed to lead white people. So if there's anybody that has the moral integrity to be able to teach this topic, is me. Because I was able to found an organization of 100,000 people with 99% white followers. So 100,000 people, 99% of them white. So that is a proof to the fact that I must address this topic. And that is also a proof that we are not inferior because of our color. And that's why I have to write the book, because I've proved it. At the moment, the predominant image captured by the world and public audience about Africans is that we are poor, backward in all matters. And I have videos of people coming to my church to picket and to demonstrate and taking placards and slogans that black people have never done anything and that black people are the lowest of all people. and that black people are inferior. And the impression is that only the Europeans have brought us the benefits of civilization, which we never had before. This image has been formed by a multitude of books about history written for at least the last 500 years, which often pursue the goal of glorifying the Europeans and devaluating the merits of black people and from other parts of the world as well, especially Asians and Africans. In reality, everything was actually the other way around. Civilization did not begin in Europe, and the rest of the world did not wait in the dark shadows of the Europeans to enlighten them. The African civilization came before the European one by thousands of years. And Europe itself was deep in ignorance until black people brought their gifts of civilization at different times in their history. The tragedy came when the 16th century Europeans started extending towards Africa and Asia, turning them into their colonies, containing most of the world's population. As a consequence, the scientific world was also colonized, especially history books. History was written and rewritten repeatedly to ignore Africans' decisive role and prove that Europeans were the only ones to create everything pertaining to civilization. It was necessary to prove the insignificance of black people and justify the crimes of that time, the seizure of their territories, of their lands, of the African lands, their resources, colonization. They had to justify decolonization. They have to justify slave trade. These are all the reasons why they have to come up with the history narrative that they came up with. So it's a large-scale plan by the Europeans to justify their evil deeds. And this is just the fact. That is why we will concentrate more in this. That's why I concentrated actually in this book that I wrote about how black people brought civilization to Europe. Nevertheless, we will highlight the phenomenal role played by Africans in other continents as well, and in this series of teachings too. So in this teaching, the term Negro or black will be used along with African. In this case, they are not meant to humiliate black people, but they are used as the words applied by the cited authors, because I'll be referring to old books. And in those old books, these are the terms that were used. So it's just for you not to have a conflict in your mind that, oh, but this is not talking about black people. Whoever you could be, whoever you are, let us take prejudice away as we listen to this series and have an objective look at the greatness of the black people, these people that are lucky enough to be dark-skinned, that we call Africans. Every person has the right to know the history of their nation, so we too have the history to know. We have the right to know our history, to admire our merits, and be respectful to our achievements and the achievements of other nations. Let this teaching bring the balance that has been missing in the history of mankind, to evaluate the role played by different nations and different people groups in developing our whole human civilization. And let it help people to have good attitudes toward all races, including black people as well. So I'm going to show you a video after this teaching, but before I show you the video, I want us to go and share this teaching, go and share the link. Please share. Let's share this message. Share the message, everybody. And also, if you have not yet joined my mentorship class, I have a mentorship program which is free of charge. You can join the mentorship program by going to sundayadelajablog.com/mentorship. You could also come and visit us in Ukraine here and be part of our History Makers training, and by writing to hmt@godembassy.org or going to sundayadelajablog.com/hmt. If you also want to read my books, you can get them on Amazon, or you could read them for free if you are registered in Amazon Unlimited, Kindle Unlimited. You could also write to my office, DSS Books, gmail.com. So if you want to buy in bulk, then it will be cheaper for you than buying on Amazon. Or you could actually become a distributor of these books and make money from them. So thank you so much, everybody. And go and share the message. And, let's go ahead and watch the video. God bless.
We tend to think of this as the beginning of an era. In fact, it's the climax of a forgotten chapter in European history. In the year 711 AD, Muslim forces invaded Spain and created a society so rich and so powerful, it was the envy of the known world. This wasn't the rigid, ferocious Islam of our imaginations, but a progressive, sensuous, intellectually curious culture that for a number of spine-tingling years looked set to sweep through the whole of Europe. It is an incredible story, but one that has been systematically written out of history. After the Catholic monarchs took over the city of Granada, they began to destroy all evidence that the Muslims had ever been in Spain. These people have become known as the Moors. Propaganda, sparked by the Crusades, has given us an enduring image. The diabolical Moor, a dark-skinned, savage, alien enemy. Now, archaeologists and historians are starting to piece together the real story of the Moors in Spain. They're uncovering the remains of hidden cities. Not a single account of life here survives. All its archives were incinerated in the fires of the Inquisition. But the Catholics couldn't bring themselves to destroy this place. The Alhambra is one of the wonders of the medieval world. And by preserving it, they've kept a box of secrets that we can use to decode the civilization that built it. Inside the palace walls, the architecture is breathtaking. Every detail of the palace decoration seems to be part of a scheme. Row upon row of intricate geometric patterns are carved into the woodwork of the walls and windows. This is the throne room. It was the symbolic centre of the palace, and here the Sultan had a kind of psychological advantage over his subjects. Whereas he'd have stood here in eerie silhouette, they'd have been blinded by the light that came streaming in through these brightly coloured stained glass windows. But this is far more than just a beautiful building. There's a specific reason why it feels so harmonious. The men who built it had a knowledge of complex geometry which had originated in the ancient world. The Alhambra is so enchanting, it's all too easy to view it as a fairy tale palace, isolated from history. But that is romantic nonsense. This palace was the product of a very real, very gritty history. The Alhambra was built by a religious empire which, at the pinnacle of its power, dominated land from China to Africa. An empire which had the wealth and intellect to build such masterpieces.
What it says in Arabic is, I am the apogee of knowledge. Come, you Muslims. Come and learn, because with knowledge you can become what you want to be.
They were well versed in using the stars as guiding devices. This developed into a very sophisticated study of astronomy. Then with the establishment of Islam, that knowledge was applied in a new way. Whenever a mosque was built, the prayer niche had to be orientated in direct relation to Mecca. And there were a number of religious festivals that had to fall on certain days in the lunar year.
These were complex mathematical problems for which the Muslims devised precise solutions. Islam became a culture which naturally embraced scientific and mathematical investigation. This uninhibited attitude towards learning meant that when Muslims encountered the teachings of other cultures, they seized upon them vigorously.
From the Bronze Age onwards, there'd been a constant exchange of artifacts and information all across the Eastern Mediterranean. And in fact, a number of Greek ideas stem from Eastern and Egyptian influences.
This little stretch of water between Spain and Morocco is only 9 miles wide, but it's come to represent some kind of cultural chasm between Europe and Africa. But in the 8th century, when sea travel was the way to get around, that wasn't a barrier, it was a highway. In July 711, 7,000 Berber tribesmen stormed across the Straits of Gibraltar and invaded Europe. The Muslims then began an incredible process of expansion. In just 4 years, they'd colonised almost the whole of Spain, had crossed the Pyrenees, and were only halted at Poitiers in France.
The Muslims started to build a new society.
The enthusiasm for learning that the Islamic world had spent years nurturing was about to be transmitted to Europe.
This is the secret of how such a great civilization came to be born.
The foundations of a new society had been laid. A self-confident, progressive and sophisticated civilization had arrived among the failing states of Europe. And the continent's history was about to be transformed. The Alhambra was the creation of the richest, most intellectually powerful civilization in the world. The roots of this cultural and religious explosion lie not in Spain, but in the deserts of... The Muslim invasion of Spain had been swift and effective, but it lacked a strong leadership. The first wave of invaders were North African tribesmen. His mother had been from North Africa, and Abd al-Rahman must have grown up hearing tales of Al-Andalus. And so he made a dangerous journey across the Nile and the deserts of Egypt, heading for those distant lands. Abd al-Rahman brought culture and learning from the centre of the Islamic world straight to the heart of Al-Andalus.
When Abd al-Rahman arrived in Spain, he came here to Cordoba, where the city was in complete disarray.
Abderrahman brought cutting-edge technology for irrigation to Spain. Almost immediately, the landscape was transformed. Palm trees, lemon and orange groves, avocados, artichokes and pomegranates, none of which had been seen in Europe. Because of Abderrahman's sophisticated trade network, this new agriculture created huge wealth. And these riches were used to build one of the greatest cities in the world. While the inhabitants of London were still living in wooden houses, the people of Cordoba had built a cosmopolitan city with a population of over 100,000, the largest settlement in Europe. Reports from European visitors to Cordoba describe a city with 70 libraries and over 300 public baths. The accounts tell of houses with running water and roads illuminated by streetlights.
You often have to take medieval sources with a fairly substantial pinch of salt because chroniclers were extremely fond of exaggeration. But in fact, the new excavations here at Cordoba are actually revealing a city that was just as rich as the one that they described. These monumental palace walls belong to a Muslim aristocrat, and this channel over here is part of the water system that brought Cordoba its famously effective sewage works, as well as the fountains and the baths that so impressed all those European visitors.
Cordoba was described by a 10th century German visitor as the ornament of the world. Abderrahman built Cordoba on top of what had been one of the largest cities in Roman Spain, outshining all that went before. And his greatest achievement was this: the Great Mosque of Cordoba.
Standard history books present the Muslim occupation of Spain as something that was superficial. New archaeological evidence is turning that idea on its head.
All over Spain, cities like Cordoba were established. Even Madrid. By aligning the needle to the grid using the measurements, the time can be read off the face of the astrolabe, just like a clock. The astrolabe enabled nighttime navigation, which helped to advance sea travel, and this in turn set the stage for the coming era of worldwide exploration and discovery. Cordoban scientists were streets ahead of the rest of Europe, especially when it came to medicine. The hospitals of Cordoba were performing operations which wouldn't be seen in the rest of Europe for hundreds of years. As well as large scientific collections, more everyday documents have survived from Islamic Cordoba. These give a detailed insight to the society that was created here.
What kinds of things are being recorded on these bits of paper?
In this document there was written everything, absolutely everything.
Have you got any physical examples of these documents?
Yes, I have one. Well, it is a contract about plowing the land. For 2 years we have to plant it with wheat and food, and he gets from this proportion of the production.
Every piece of evidence from Cordoba adds to the picture of a civilized and highly sophisticated city. It had medical centres, an organised legal system, and libraries full of academics and scientists working on ideas which were light years ahead of anything else in Europe. Abd al-Rahman III built himself one of the biggest royal palaces in the world. While the English kings of the same period were living in modest wooden halls, Abd al-Rahman III needed 10,000 workmen to construct this enormous palace complex, which was decorated with African white marble. The alabaster palace, surrounded by acres of date palms, was described as a concubine lying in the arms of a black eunuch. And Arabic translations of Greek geometry and those new Arabic numerals were passed on to craftsmen and architects. This was a critical stage in the growth of Western thought. We should no longer see the Renaissance as a rebirth, but the continuation of an intellectual movement which had been nourished centuries earlier.
The Italian Renaissance is famous for reviving classical learning, but in fact what's happening here 400 years earlier seems to be just as vital. Do you think that Muslim scholars aren't given due credit for what they're doing in Islamic Spain at this time?
It is not something that you would learn about in school, probably, or even at university. It was probably conscious process of neglect, and now we are still suffering from that.
Extremely selective history writing.
That's right.